Get ready, Hoosier fans. This is the Hoosier Tailgate, where passion meets football. We're breaking down the biggest stories, bold predictions, and insider insight on Indiana football and beyond. Whether it's game day strategy, recruiting buzz, or the latest hot takes, we've got you covered. Grab your spot at the tailgate. The Hoosier Tailgate starts now.
Hello again, everybody. Hello again, everybody. I'm the coach, Shannon Griffith, and welcome to the Hoosier Football Tailgate right here on thehoosier.com. Coming at you after a victorious Saturday in Bloomington where the Indiana Hoosiers captured their first win of the season, 27-14 over Old Dominion. We hope that you're enjoying your Labor Day weekend, enjoying the fun-filled weekend of college football on tap with one more tonight as North Carolina and TCU are kicking it off here shortly. But we appreciate you joining us. As always, I wish that if you are here and you have any questions, by all means, please put those into the chat box. We will try to get to them if I see them and try to give you as best answer as I can, as well as any other things that you may have a question on. But don't forget that we do have some affiliates out there that if you would happen to go and purchase anything from our affiliates, we do receive something in return for that. Those can be found on my Twitter bio feed, as well as in the description on YouTube of these videos. And speaking of YouTube, make sure you head over there tonight and subscribe to the YouTube channel there for the Hoosier.com, as well as follow us on all of our social media sites. Mine is at the Hoosier Tailgate and Coach Griff 55, and the Hoosier on 3 is the X feed for the Hoosier.com. And again, we're still running the special $1 for the first month, 50% off the rest of the year. And so get over there today, get that picked up. You get the Hoosier.com, you get on3.com. You also get the Athlon magazine subscription as well. So a great bundle of items there for you to enjoy all through the football season, as we've got high school football kicked off. We've got college football kicked off. Now we got next Sunday, we'll get the NFL involved in this little party we've got going on, and we will be heading in for the rest of the fall into those dreaded winter months. But if it comes out the way we all hope it would come out, we will enjoy it full on all the way through, as Indiana did not disappoint in the aspect of they got a win. And when you roll up 309 yards rushing against Old Dominion, and that's not a air, 309 yards, but you still end up trying to explain why the Old Dominion Monarchs were basically a single score or two away from true chaos. That's one of those things that you kind of aspire to be as a winning program, explaining wins that you don't play quite as well in, but you find a way to win it. And there's no such thing as a bad win. And even Signetti said that today during his presser. And, Indiana was ripping off 10 play drives, 70-yard drives, you name it, they had it. But it really should have been a blowout on Saturday. But Instead, we've got, a fourth quarter of nips and tucks here and there, and then the failure to get in the end zone in a consistent fashion, especially inside the red zone. We're going to talk all about that tonight. We'll get to that here in a second with all that, including video from Saturday's contest, and talk about some of these plays that Indiana faced on Saturday. When you look at it all, we'll go through the stats. We'll go through what I had down as the goals for Saturday, what they actually were, who played well, who didn't play so well, my overall grades for offense, defense, and special teams heading into this next week against Kennesaw State, who went to Wake Forest and only lost by a point. But in that loss, they missed an extra point and they missed a field goal. That's how they lost that ball game. So if you don't think special teams play a huge factor on whether you win or lose, look at Saturday's game against Old Dominion and what that incurred there, and with the Brady 91-yard touchdown return that erupted the crowd there in Bloomington, and then look to Wake Forest, who survived that 10-9 game against Kennesaw State, and Dexter Williams, who had a phenomenal game for them. So we'll get into all that tonight, I promise. But, the biggest thing that Indiana got into, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more and talk about some of the things here. Let me get some things up here. Want to touch first on some of the injury updates that we got today from Coach Signetti. The first one being Bryson Bond, the safety, who was out for the year for Indiana with a knee injury. Tough thing for the young man. I think he did end up hurting that on one of the special team plays on Saturday. Tough one to see, but unfortunately he did get banged up a little bit. They did hold out Baldwin on the game Saturday as more of a precaution than anything. So, but they did come out of that game pretty unscathed when you think about their top 22. And that's the key component there, is they did not get too banged up in that ball game on Saturday overall. And, that's the nice thing about it. Then you look at to what Sig believed what the game could have been. It should have been a 56-7 blowout. And it all comes down to having the execution inside the red zone that Indiana a year ago did quite well, especially inside the 10s, where they were somewhere close to 90% efficiency, scoring points inside the red zone and touchdowns, I should say. And that was not something they, couldn't do quite regularly a year ago when they got the ball down there, especially inside the 5-yard line, let alone the 10. And Saturday was just a debacle at times there. I was having flashbacks to Louisville 2 years ago when they couldn't get the ball inside the touchdown from the 1-yard line. And it's one of those things that sometimes you get into these games and these non-conference games, especially someone like Old Dominion, that you may not have a lot of film on, especially if there's been a change in staff or philosophy from that team that you're playing. And I know that Indiana, Sig had said they had jumped into a couple fronts down there that they weren't expecting them to. And while that is a legitimate concern, but that's why you've got video pads on the sideline now, and you can dial up the plays right there and automatically go right through them and say, this is what they're doing and this is what we got to do. And that was, when they didn't get there the first time and they saw some things they weren't expecting to see, okay, you get over there, you get it corrected, so that when you start getting back down there again, you don't have that excuse again. You don't have the excuse, well, they jumped into something we weren't expecting. Well, that's why you have iPads on the sidelines. And that's why you have coaches there talking about what's going on down there. So there has to be a full account of what happened in that ball game Saturday. down inside that area of the field that they were not able to score enough points. When you get inside the 10-yard line and should have come away with 50 some odd points and you only get 20, and two of the times you get completely nothing, there has to be an account as to what occurred. Was it a coaching thing? Was it a expectation of doing something that your personnel wasn't capable of doing? Was it a combination of all the above, or was it the plan that you had in effect for that down there? When you have 10 guys in the box, I don't care how many players you got back there. You can't run inside zone and expect to push people off the line of scrimmage from the 2-yard out. I just don't believe that's physically possible. I think you have to be able to block down, kick out, pull around, which they end up doing on Keelan Black's score. And then the one other score they got is when they ran the quarterback read and Mendoza pulled it and went around the left end for a score. So you just can't line up and think that you're going to knock the Pee Willie out of somebody every time running inside zone. It just burns my you-know-what when I see teams do that. And inside zone's a great play, don't get me wrong. But when you're inside the red zone and you're trying to run zone blocking schemes and they're occupying every gap with guys blitzing in behind it, it's tough on offensive linemen to pick that shit up. Pardon my French on that. And that's why you have the block down schemes and pull around and kick out concepts here and there. Or you find ways to kick the ball to the outside, in some respects. And then, Mendoza missed some throws to E.J. Williams. He guided it a couple times down there instead of throwing it. And the one throw he had to E.J., he should have thrown that as a back shoulder throw and let E.J. rotate and, get the ball. But these are all things that they're going to have to work on between now and next Saturday to address the issues, because if they do not address the issues, they're going to have the problem again. And when you see things that happen more than once, there's a couple things that are happening. Either you're allowing it to happen or you're coaching it to happen in some respects. So that's some things that got to be taken care of prior to the game on Saturday against Kennesaw State. The other thing here would be talking a little bit here about the 6 trips inside the 10-yard line, only getting 20 points, and 2 other times I believe they got nothing in that regard. So it's one of those things that can happen. Yeah, well, that's true too, John. That win felt better than the 4 overtime wins against. I can totally agree with what you're coming from there. And again, when you have success like Indiana's had a year ago, and the expectation and the standard raises, whether regardless of you're a part of the program or a fan, and you don't meet that standard, even though you win, you still come away disappointed. And I think that's what Sig was saying during his presser today, was it's kind of nice to be around a place that you come away with a win, but in some ways you're disappointed because you didn't exceed the standard that's set. And I think he was trying to say that's what he expects out of Indiana football and from his fans. You'd never get too comfortable where you're at. You've always got to be, you always got to be pushing for the next thing and striving to be better. Never losing sight that winning is very hard, and you will never apologize for winning because it's razor thin. But at the same time, you got to be critically objective in your analysis of what prevented you from having that game well under control, as opposed to having a game that you're kind of piddling around with Old Dominion. And that's the times where you get your ass burned. When you don't put a team away and you give them hope, that's when bad things happen. So I think that's what he was trying to allude to a little bit in his presser today. And, have to agree with what his, how he discussed that in the press today. The other thing that popped in my mind from Saturday is Sarratt. He only had 3 targets in the second half. He had none in the first half. And that to me is just a complete and utter malpractice as an offense. Your best receiver, you don't have any targets on him in the first half of that ball game Saturday and only 3 in the second half. And that to me is offensive malpractice. And that should never happen. Never. And I get there are some times when you're calling a game where you're calling plays and pass plays that, you would hope in some respects that he would flash and become open. But there are times where you have to have designated routes to to get the hands on the guys that you think are your best players. Sarratt is one of those. And therefore, you need to have targeted throws to him and not hope something comes to his way, because that doesn't always happen, especially when you have a new quarterback in the backfield. It's not Curtis Rourke standing back there that has this comfort with Elijah Sarratt. It's a whole new picture. So you've got to sometimes force the issue to get him the football, however you try to do it, to make sure that he's getting the touches in a ball game. But to come out of that game yesterday and no touches in the first half and only, I think, 3 in the second, that's just not, that's, in my opinion, that's not acceptable. I mean, I'm not trying to say he's the one and only, because you've got very good receivers. You got Cooper, you got AJ Williams, which was a great surprise yesterday in terms of his productivity on the field. You got Sarratt, you got Brady, you got, I mean, I can go right down the list, but Sarratt is your All-American wide receiver who proved his worth a year ago, and him not getting a throw in the first half was just inexcusable. So I would imagine that was brought up, and it should have been brought up not only by Sig, but even Shanahan, who's calling the plays, and say, hey, look, this is where I fell short on Saturday in play calling, and that's because I didn't get him the ball soon enough or find ways to put the ball in his hands. And we've got to do that in making sure that he touches the football. So that came up, that was a big glaring spot for me yesterday. And I don't think, that will happen again. The other thing I noticed in yesterday's ball game is they didn't really run any RPOs yesterday or Saturday, which was a big part of their offense a year ago. Now, some of that could have been what Old Dominion was doing on the perimeter. And sometimes you don't see those things because of, where you're sitting, the angle, TV, whatever it may be. But that was a big part of the offense last year, was the RPO game. And they really didn't have that in the mix on Saturday. And that one, I scratched my head a little bit too. So some of the things that got them to the dance a year ago, that was a big part of who they are as an offense and were as an offense a year ago, they did not even look to try that yesterday. And sometimes when you're pounding the rock like they were, you're getting 300 some odd yards a game in a game, and you got 3 running backs that are toting the rock pretty well. Hemby, Black. I was great to see Beebe get back in there after he had the miscue and the fumble in the first. Sometimes you just kind of get locked into the thing that we're pounding it, we're pounding sand up their ass, and you don't want to change the fortune of that. And, sometimes I've been guilty of that as a coach, where you get in the mindset where, if I had Roman, Hemby, and Black in the backfield, I'd want to get them the ball as well, as much as I humanly possibly can. And so these are all things that happen in a first game. The biggest thing you want to do is secure the win. The second thing you want to make sure you have some type of continuity as an offense. They didn't really play a lot of complementary offense and defense yesterday as much as you would have liked, in terms of 3 and outs and the offense taking the ball and going. Just too many things that stopped them in that regard on Saturday. But then again, I don't want to sound like I'm overly critical and raining on everyone's parade in this regard, because the bottom line is they came away 1-0, and that's the objective. 1-0, and we all know that they're not canceling practice tomorrow because they've got a lot to work on, and there's nobody better than the kids that know that. And you could tell by the way they conducted themselves in the post-game interviews and how they handled themselves. I was very impressed with the kids, very impressed in terms of how mature they are, and took every question, answered every question. a lot of, responsibility and not living up to the standard and things of that nature. I thought it was a good sign to see how those kids handled that presser after that game, even though they won, but they also knew that they didn't play to the expectation that they needed to play to on Saturday. And then the last thing on defensive things of it is that you can't give explosive plays up like they did. First play of the game goes for 75. You give up another one later for 70 plus yards. And the second one was a complete bust by Wyatt. Complete bust. He's got the quarterback in that situation. He chased the inside, and next thing you know, it's 88 out the gate. That can't happen, and it won't happen again. And the first play of the game that they ran was a little different schematically in how they ran it with the outside zone concept. The backer got locked up in the, what the guard was doing and kind of overread it, overplayed it. He should have maybe slow played that. And then the nose tackle chased too, because the quarterback was reading him mostly, and he chased off that center's butt. And that's when the Joseph kid pulled it, and Hardy was gone, and there was nobody other than Lewis Moore back there, and he was kind of in no man's land based upon his coverage responsibilities and stuff. So those things will get corrected, and that's the beauty of it. They're correctable. It's not a physical thing. It's not something that they're not capable of doing. It's not out of the realm that they're asking them to do something they're not capable of. That's not it. It's a mental thing. It's being in tune and reading your keys as a defensive player and understanding what your responsibilities and gap responsibilities are and why those are important. Because when you don't do your responsibility, especially gap responsibilities, that's when you see it go 88 out the gate. So with that being said, no biggie. We get it all covered here, and I'm rambling here, boys, and I'm sorry. I was also surprised we let ODU dictate their terms on. Well, yeah, and and that's what I was trying to say is that, for every body you bring in there, they're going to bring another one in. So if you're going to play smash mouth football in there, you can't go in there and thinking you're going to play smash mouth zone football. You're not going to run inside zone when you've got 9 or 10 guys at the point of attack. You've got to be able to run block downs, block the gap down, pull the guys out, kick out, pull through, in which they did with Black on that other touchdown that he scored. But the ones that they got stopped on down there, they were trying to pound sand up their ass, and they got stuffed because they were trying to run inside zone. And that's what happens. And I get fired up about that because I just don't think inside zone is a great play inside the 5-yard line when your elbows and assholes down there and you're trying to root out guys, and it's just a very difficult thing to do. So those are all things that we have to get corrected in that regard. But let's see here. Let's get over to this one here and go over some of the scores from the games this weekend in the Big Ten, as well as talk about some things that happened in and around the Big Ten this past weekend. Nothing earth-shattering other than, Texas and the SEC found out they're not that great. Alabama got beat, and Texas got beat, so that kind of maybe shut them up for a while. But Purdue had a big win over my alma mater, shut them out. Maryland had a big win against FAU. Their quarterback lit it up, so that'll be a team to keep an eye on. Northwestern continues to have its woes. Tulane beat them, and Tulane's not a bad team at all. Ohio State and that game against Texas was a dandy, 14-7. And Ohio State, I believe, stopped Texas on the 1-yard line twice because Texas was trying to sneak it in with Arch Manning. I mean, again, you got All-Americans in the backfield, and you're trying to take your first-time quarterbacks guy that's a starter and trying to run a sneak against probably one of the better defenses in the Big Ten. And it was like banging your head against the wall. I just didn't understand that one, but okay. Penn State did well, of course. Oregon did well. Iowa, they did well, but they only had 46 yards passing, I believe, on the day. In that regard, on Saturday, USC put one on Missouri State out there in beautiful sunny California. Michigan with a big win over New Mexico, 34-17. It was a little tighter than that. They also lost their best defensive end for the first half against Oklahoma Saturday. Washington pulled away from Colorado State late. That was a pretty good ball game. UCLA got smoked by Utah. Wasn't very pretty. And then you can see some of the other ones there. Michigan State got a big win. Rutgers held on to beat Ohio U 34-31 in a game that Rutgers was up like 27-3. And that was one of those games I had said that Rutgers was possibly on an upset alert this past weekend. Nebraska pulls one off against Cincinnati. Wisconsin gets a big win over Miami of Ohio. And then Minnesota beat Buffalo late as well. So some of the big games in and around the Big Ten this past weekend. And then looking at this week ahead, who's on the docket for schedule this week. Western Illinois plays Northwestern Friday night, as does Northern Illinois play Maryland at 7:30 on BTN. Both those games on Friday. Northwestern looking to get in the win column, and that game for them is going to be a tough one. Maryland plays Northern Illinois. Minnesota has Northwest State. And, of course, Indiana plays Kennesaw State. 12 o'clock kickoff there in Bloomington on FS1. In that regard, we got Iowa State. That's the Fox game of the week. College game day will be there for Iowa and Iowa State. That should be a dandy. Illinois Duke should be a good one as well. Penn State has FIU. Oregon has Oklahoma State. Rutgers gets another tough one, another MAC team coming to visit them in Miami of Ohio. Ohio State has a tough one, Grambling, for all the grief that Indiana has taken over the last 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks or so because of Indiana's schedule. Ohio State has Grambling coming in to play them. That doesn't make sense. Wisconsin, Middle Tennessee State, Southern Illinois, and Purdue. We'll see if Purdue can get to 2-0. And again, while they get off on a big win and shutout, if they can get to 2-0, you know how momentum is. They can get all of a sudden into a position where they feel like nobody can beat them, and that's half the battle, especially a team that hasn't won that much. Let's see here. Any other big ones? Boston College, Michigan State, that should be a dandy. And that really is it. UCLA has UNLV. That may be an interesting ball game as well as we head into this second week of games ahead of this week ahead of us here. But as you can see, we're still in that mindset of non-conference foes, and another couple weeks of that, Indiana with Kennesaw State, which will be, again, it's going to be a very good ball team that's coming in. Dexter Williams, a former quarterback for Indiana, who led them last week at Wake Forest in that 10-9 loss because they couldn't kick a field. They missed a field goal, and they missed an extra point that cost them that ball game. So all that being said, you got another one coming into town that's coming in probably feeling pretty confident, even though they lost, that, they can come into Bloomington, and it's going to be a big game for Dexter as well. He's going to be coming in with that little chip on his shoulder, a team that kind of he feels like abandoned him. And he went on his merry way, went to Georgia Southern. But we'll get into Kennesaw State on Thursday and what all they bring to the table. Let's see here. Anything else that's popped into the quack? Yep, Sig will be coaching the coaches this week. That is correct. Yeah, he will. Don't worry. Yeah, Sig will make sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed this week, and he'll be fully abreast of what is happening, especially with offense, because that's where his expertise lies. And he will, just like any good head coach, he'll make sure that the corrections are made and addressed on both sides of the football. And he'll hold the assistant coaches accountable for that, as will the assistants hold the players accountable. And that's kind of how the hierarchy of college football coaches work. The head man coaches the coaches coaches the players. And if there's a problem, you know what they say, it trickles downhill. Well, that's pretty true in college football coaching as well. When you think about all that. Let's go back here and look at some of the goals this past week that I had up here. Let's make sure I got this up here right. And when I talked about the goals that I kind of set for the team going into this game, and these are some of the things I thought they needed. You know, I had predicted a score 31-17. Okay, it's 27-14. Indiana surpassed the 200-yard rushing goal by 109 yards. Well, fell well short of the passing goal, but they did surpass the total offense of 509 to 475. So not too far off there on either equation there. Better than I thought they did in terms of overall productivity in that regard. On defense, they held them to 14. They gave up well over 100 yards, 200 yards and change, but consider 150, I think it was 158 yards of it were two plays. That wasn't too bad. I said to hold them 175 yards passing. They actually held them under 100 yards passing. Thought the offense needed to be about 40% on third down. They were much better than that, almost 60% on third downs. Not as good there in the red zone in terms of points scored, and they did secure 3 turnovers on the day, 3 interceptions. Unfortunately, Indiana did turn the ball over once. Beebe fumbled that one ball, but they still come out ahead, a +2 on the day. But the middle one there, I always said special teams has to score, set up a score. And they were able to score, which is huge, especially in that game Saturday, because it finally brought the crowd erupting into the game. And that was just a hell of a play by Brady, but even better by the guys out on that field blocking for him. And that's why you never give up on a play. And that was a prime example. Those kids did a great job with that on Saturday when it came to sustaining in their responsibilities. And there was one young man, and I'll show it on the tape, that actually blocked 2 players by just turning his back and kind of walling off without being in a position to get a penalty. He kind of walled him off with his back to them, and he blocked 2, and that actually sprung Brady for the big run. So overall, you got to feel pretty good in that instance. But this was the goals I had laid out Thursday for you guys, and pretty close in some respects and not great on the other ones. But when you looked at the final stats from Saturday's contest, of course, we talked about the score there. 309 yards for Indiana. Phenomenal to come out of the gates and get over 300 yards rushing. I I just can't tell you how exciting that is to have the guys in that backfield with Roman Hemby and Black back there. That makes me excited for a lot of things. I love Hemby. I mean, and I love Black too. You liked him last year. That kid runs hard. He's got great vision. He has great feet. He made on that first drive of the game. He actually had that great cut, what we call a jump cut, where he jumped back behind it and took off down the right sideline and got him down there in the scoring position on that first drive Saturday. And then Hemby had a couple big runs. And those boys have got to start using their bodies though down there in the red zone as well. And they got to start punishing people. And we got to get them out on the perimeter some to do that. I think will help as well. And then Beebe got into the swing of things there in the second half. Felt sorry for the kid. He runs so hard. He fumbled that ball, and I was like, crap. You know, he's going to sit in the doghouse for a little bit. But anyway, overall, when you look at this, 96 yards, they held him 96 yards. We talked about they gave up 218 on the ground, but we said over 100 and some of that was 2 plays. Third down, Indiana was 10 of 17. That's a phenomenal third down day because of this right here, because of 309 yards. They were getting first downs on second downs a lot, but when it was third, it was mostly third and medium and short, and that's why they had such a high third down percentage efficiency. Went for a couple times. They were 0 for 2 on fourth down. It really wasn't a game where that came into too much of a play. Indiana was 4 or 7 into the red zone, 57% on Saturday. Old Dominion was 0 for 0 because they never got down there. Their plays was scored from 70-plus yards out. Indiana, this is where Sig said they should have been up 50-some-odd to 7 in that game. And this is what they'll have to definitely work on. They came out of +2 on Saturday, and they did get 10 points off of turnovers. And remember what I told you guys last year, that was a huge thing for Indiana. They were scoring, they were like in the top 5 in the country on points off of turnovers, I think. And that's huge. So, and such a demoralizing thing for the opposing team that when the Indiana got a fumble or picked off a pass and it set up a score, or they scored themselves, it's just huge in that regard. So, it's not too bad here for the old man calling it out like he sees it sometimes. Laugh, laugh. But pretty close in my guesstimations of what I thought it was going to take on Saturday to get a W. Could have done with 2 less big explosive plays, and Indiana have a few more. Indiana did have more explosive plays than Old Dominion had on the day. That's another telltale sign on winning. The more explosions you have, the better chance you're going to have winning, especially if you big play your opponent in that regard. Goes hand in hand with scoring, getting a touchdown off of a special team play, and then, of course, winning the turnover margin as well in that game. Saturday. But it's just one of those things that, from a ground game perspective, I mean, this team, right from the first snap, they looked pretty much unstoppable in their run game. I mean, it was a pretty much dominant deal all day long for them with Hemby and Black. They were ripping off 8, 9, 10, 11 yards of carry. Hemby finished with about 110 yards. So it was quite a great day for Indiana's running game and the guys up front. It was great to see Evans back into the swing of things. That's a young man that got hurt towards the end of the last year and kind of put them in a little bit of a tailspin heading into the last part of the season. But, they played well. Their front 5 played well. For the entire ball game and stayed healthy. I don't think there's any question that having the big man from Notre Dame lining up as your center has made a huge difference in the continuity up front. So all good with that. And again, I think Indiana's goes about 6 or 7 deep there as well along the front. Yeah, that's a very true statement. About 4 more yards would result in about 14 more points. That is good. That's a good good take there, Thomas. I appreciate that one. From that standpoint. But hey, Indiana's still the talk around water coolers, so everybody that's an IU fan can still head to the water cooler tomorrow and talk about how Indiana got a big win. You'll have to put up a little bit from the Boilermakers, a little bit, because they got a big W, 31-0. But you're not uninvited, Hoosiers, from the water cooler talk on starting tomorrow. When you look at that stuff from Saturday. And let's see here. Let's get into here some of the regular plays from Saturday. And let me get back over here to my trusty sidekick of stuff, if I can find it all. Let's go back up to check on Mr. Mendoza. 1831, 58%, 193 yards. No big, not a bad day at all. I mean, productive day. Like to see him in the 60%. Cooper, had he brought in that one pass for a touchdown, he would have been well over 250 yards on the day, and we would have been thinking, oh my God, there's the first round draft pick there. So one drop pass kept him from having a phenomenal day, although he missed a couple others outside of that one pass that Cooper dropped. And there were times Saturday where Mendoza was he was guiding it, not throwing it. And he even kind of admitted that in the post-game presser on Saturday, that he didn't throw it well, and it was because he was trying to be more pinpoint and guiding it. When you throw a deep ball, and I don't care whether it's a post, whether it's a streak, in those type of balls that you're trying to lead your receiver open, and what we call throw him open. He did that with Coop on that throw, and he dropped it in there because he got plenty of air underneath it, and it gave a chance for Cooper to run under it. Unfortunately, he dropped that one. But there were a couple other ones that he threw. I think Sarratt one and one to EJ, where he threw it like on a line drive. And when you throw a deep ball, you can't throw it high enough. That's what I would tell a quarterback. You can't throw it high enough. You got to get it. You've got to get that arc on the ball, and what we call a 3-ball. You got 3 type of balls. You got a 1-ball, a 2-ball, and a 3-ball. A 1-ball's on a line. A 2-ball's kind of got a little hump in it for that 18 to 25 yard throw. And the 3-ball's when you're kind of throwing that 50, 60 yard touchdown pass. Well, he was throwing 2 balls to Sarratt and EJ when it required a 3-ball to get the ball up in the air and let him run under it. And that was because he was guiding them. He was trying to guide the ball instead of throw the ball. So you got to understand, as a quarterback, when you're trying to throw people open, you got to throw a 3-ball. You cannot throw guys deep on a line. It's a tough ball to catch. It's just not going to work unless you're going to throw a back shoulder throw type of pass where they're going to adjust to it, and they're the only one knows it's coming because the DB's not aware of it. So that's where he's got to get better, is these deep ball, because he cannot leave points on the field because he either overthrows them because he's not throwing it up in the air high enough, or he's making a poor throw and it gets deflected and knocked down. So in that regard, wasn't very good. So he, I thought his pass protection was good. I thought the pass protection around him was good. I think they only gave up 1 sack. And he had plenty of time back there. He really didn't have to move up in the pocket too well. He added 6 carries for 36 yards, as well as a QBR of 110, which isn't too bad for a day like that. So good to see by Fernando. Then Hemby, he had a great start for his first game as a Hoosier. 23 carries, 110 yards, 4.8 yards a carry. His big one was 20. And then he was a part of the offense's 309 yards as the leading rusher Saturday for the offense. And then Black, again, I call him the dynamic duo, 17 carries, 92 yards, 5.4 on his average per carry. 1 touchdown. He had a long of 36. That was on the first drive of the game. And again, scored his first touchdown of the season on a 4-yard touchdown run. So a very good display there by Mr. Black as Mr. Steady Eddie, a guy that goes way back with Coach Signetti. So there's a lot of trust in that young man by that coaching staff, at least from Coach Sig's point of view. And Sig loves Hemby as well. So he's got 2 top backs there. And then, of course, we know what Beebe brought to the table. And he's going to be a dandy of a one good as well. And then the other good performance yesterday, you got to give it up for him, is EJ Williams. I mean, he had a total of 8 targets on the day, 5 catches, 45 yards, about 9 yards a catch. The catches that he didn't make were more the fault of Fernando than they were of EJ running a poor route or dropping a pass or things of that nature. But he, in my opinion, he had 0 drops on the day. He looked the part. The biggest thing on that is, knock on wood, he stays healthy, because that's his Achilles heel, is staying healthy. But came out of that game pretty good on Saturday, and got to recognize the fact that, he had a pretty good day for him. And again, he's such a valuable receiver when it comes to that outside position there, that is going to be a major factor as they go throughout the year now. And hopefully, like I said, he can stay healthy. We can get Cooper back in the fray and getting him going. Again, RPOs are going to be a big factor in all that. The quick passing game can be a big factor in, getting those balls to those guys in space, and then finding ways to have a scheme that you say, I'm going to get this time, or I'm going to get the ball to EJ this time, or whoever that may be within your play system, so that you don't come out of a game and you look at cross-eyed at the stats and say, oh my God, I only got 3 targets to that kid. That's stupid. And that will be addressed. And I know if there's one person that's addressing, that's Shanahan, because he's a wide receiver coach. He's the first thing he's going to tell himself, what are you doing? You got to get guys the touches that they need to have the touches for, because they're your bread and butter out there on the outside. So that in itself is good. We talked about the red zone and the deficiencies that went on there on Saturday. I thought the 2 tight ends played well, Stays and Riley, for the better part of the game. Thought their blocking was really good at times. I thought even, what routes they did run and get some chances for, it's good. It's a good thing there. And let's see here, a couple more. Let's see. Yeah, he was late, and again, like Thomas, not enough air under that ball. On the goal line there, the 4th down play that got knocked down, they jumped the route pretty good on that one, and Fernando may be on a hair late, and Riley needs to snap that off a little bit better. He kind of drifted, and that's why that corner kind of knocked it down. So, all good there. Absolutely, Thomas, anytime, brother. And then the defense, I think, outside of the Colton Joseph 2 big runs, hey, they played their butts off and got a big win. And that's kind of what I think. When you look at this game, it wasn't a clean win. It was a game that they dominated between the 10-yard lines and then did not quite get it done inside of him. But at the end of the day, a win is a win is a win. And even Sig said that the failures within the red zone were unacceptable. And he's going to get it fixed. And it's not rocket science there to figure out what you need to do. And whether it's spreading it out some, having more creativity like they did last year against Nebraska, where they had some different things for down in there. And that's easier when you got more game film on teams. You can be more creative. In the first game, you kind of hold your cards a little bit tighter to your vests in that regard. Get some of the RPOs back into the equation. But the rushing offense, man, I just keep going back to that and what Coach Bobstead has done with that offensive line for the better part of 3 years. You got to be proud about that and how they played. Offensively, on the day, I ranked that I gave them a grade of about C+ on Saturday offensively. Had they scored in there, it would probably have been a better B on the day, and maybe got some more explosive plays. But overall, it was just about a little bit better than average for them in that regard. Let's see here. Let's see. I was able to go to the game. They look slow, but there's a little bit of tendency there. First game of the year, maybe not playing to that speed of the game that you need them to, and they'll get there. And we did have quite a few guys out there. That's who you want out there holding the ball, catching the ball. You want guys that have familiarity with the ball. You don't want to, put somebody out there that doesn't handle the ball quite as much. Running backs, wide receivers, in some cases DBs, depending on how they do. That's who you need back there in that aspect for the kicking game and stuff. They had Hemby back on the kickoff return. So let's see here. On defense, I gave the defense a B+ on Saturday. They'd had an A had they not given up the two big gashes, but for the most part, you got to be pleased with how they played and rebounded from those two catastrophes. One, like I said, was Wyatt's fault for chasing. I'll show you here in just about 2 minutes. And but they held them to, for the better part of I think it was the second half, third quarter, they were 2 of 12 on third downs, Old Dominion. So that's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. They would have got an A for me had they not given up the two big gashers, because you can't do that. And they pretty much kept him in check. I thought they did get some good pressure with just 3 guys at time, 4 guys on others. So all about a B+ there. And then you got to give the special teams an A, baby. They scored, and I love Brady. He's not afraid to pick up the ball and run with it. Sometimes you get those guys back there and all they want to do is fair catch it, which drives me nuts sometimes. It's a part of the game. It's the best way to get yardage sometimes is in the kicking game. You got to be in a position to do it and block, of course, but to go back there and fair catch it every time, I just don't think that's wise either. Sometimes you got a chance to return a ball and let's go, type of mentality in that regard. So overall, not bad on the day in that regard. Could have been better in some respects. But in some keys, it is what it is. And like I said, I thought overall, it was a pretty good day in the sense that they got the W, and that's what matters the most, is getting the win on the day. So let me pull up some video here. I've also got some things here. Let's get over to that right now. Let's see if I can get this up here and get her rocking and rolling here. And this is a little bit more of a presentational type of thing here. And first thing we're going to look at here is the first play of the game. And I've got it drawn up here in the aspect of, let's see. Oh, present. There we go. You'll see it here as we get going here. And this was the first play of the game. And you can see they did those wide splits like Indiana was expecting. And I've got the two guys highlighted that really missed the deal here, if you can see this. This is Hardy. He overplays it because he's reading the guard. And this guard kind of squeezed down. And then this, I can't remember if that was Tucker or Wheeler, but he squeezed and chased so much that you're going to see a big hole open here real quick. And this is the wide aspect of it first. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. And the quarterback, give him credit too. He did a great job of hiding it. And then nobody knew what it was going on there. Nobody. And this is where Lewis, he got kind of caught in no man's land there, and he's got to be the last line of defense. And this cat was fast. Plus, he's big. He's like 6'3" and 240. He's a big dude. Let's try to get over here to the end zone part of it as well. All right. Here's the end zone part of it here quickly. And you can kind of see how Indiana's playing this. We call this an underfront, where the strength's over here to our right as we're looking at it. You got a 3 technique. He's in the B gap, 5 technique, C gap. So he's got a B gap responsibility, and Hardy's got a 2 gap responsibility. He's playing a weak A and potentially a strong A. Fish has got a B gap. He's got to get upfield, or he's scraping over the top if he reads flow. What happens here is Wheeler squeezes too much, and Hardy goes too fast, and you'll see it here when you get right there. Okay, it's ball game over. His head is nowhere to be found, and the quarterback is actually, and I think, is reading Wheeler. He's reading the tackle here. And when he sees him turn his shoulders right now, he's pulling it. And when that happens, it's 88 out the gate. Nobody knows who's got the ball. He faked everybody out, including the cameraman. Saturday. So, yeah, but that was just a really good play by them overall. And as you can see, they did a great job of that. Then this is the one. This is the play that Wyatt totally blew it on his responsibility. They're running inside zone to our left. This quarterback actually turns his back, but he's peeking back here. And when he sees Wyatt chase down, and actually Indiana has a cross blitz stunt on, which is a great call versus inside zone. Wyatt has to be the guy that contains the quarterback on this type of play, and he doesn't. And next thing you know, it's 88 out the gate. And that's what happens when you, this is the first one again. I'm sorry. I think this is this right here. Yep, here it is. We'll see it here. See, he's Wyatt's right here, cross blitz by Fish and Jones. He's got to come up field and keep everything inside of him. He's the contained guy. You see him when he dropped down there and he saw it, ABC, and Bryant's got him in man out here because he's cross blitzing it. So the corners and safeties are all manned up. So they're not really concerned about what happened here. And before they realized it, there he goes again. That dude is fast. And Pons is fast too. And he got him, but not before it was too late. I mean, and that was a big play in that game, guys. I mean, when you think about it, you're up 3 scores, and next thing you know, it's a 2-score game back again. And that's the thing that probably irritated Sig the most. Back to this again here. You can see it here. It's a little cut off, but you can see the cross blitz here. Indiana's in an odd front, and they're moving the front. Fish is taking the A gap. He's coming over the top in a 0. So those guys got it mucked up pretty good there. And you can see Colton, he's looking at him out of the corner of his eye. And you can see that, and it can be coached. But as soon as Wyatt chases down, it's over. He's got to be up the field and keep the ball inside his shoulder. He can't let that guy outside of him, and it's over. I mean, that's a critical error and cannot happen. That's a lack of awareness on what your keys and responsibilities there. And he'll get better. He'll get better on it. I guarantee you. All right, let's see here. This is, I think, the interception that Moore got, if I'm not mistaken. Here, let me see. Yeah, this is the interception that Lewis got on this one. And this is just good coverage by Indiana. And what happens here is they bring a fire blitz from the field. He does a good job of distracting him, and he tries to thread it in there, and he overthrows it, tips up, and Lewis is in the position to go grab it and get her down to the 10, and that's huge. That's a huge play in the game as well. So now we go to the offensive side of the ball. We're going to go pretty quick here, guys, because I don't want to keep you too long. I apologize if I am. This is the first play of the game, and Indiana's just running an inside zone play. And watch the cut that Black makes here. It's a great move. Indiana's in an unbalanced set. There's Riley, the tight end at the top, 2 wide receivers. This is Stays coming in motion. Indiana's going to run inside zone to the right. He's going back to cut off and potentially be the lead blocker if Mendoza pulls it. So Keelan, that was just a hell of a cut right there, boys. That's a hell of a cut by that kid. Great job by Coop, even though he gets lambasted there, but love the effort because he keeps him off of him. And here's a good pitch from the end zone. Good job up front here blocking by the O-line too. Great job. You got a hat on a hat. These two working here. These two are working there. Those two guys are taken. Mr. Tailback, you got him. That guy right there, and the wide receiver's coming in to take him as well. So he sets him up. Boom. Good job by Benson. He ends up getting 2. And just a great run overall by Mr. Black. And then this is Hemby's big run. Again, a great job up front by the O-line. Inside zone, again, going to our left. These two are working for 34. These two are working for those two. And Riley's going to come back and take this guy off the edge. So you got a hat on a hat. Boom. Look at that hole. That's a thing of beauty. And Hemby running down the sideline. I like that too. This is the one down in the end zone. And this is one of the plays that didn't work. As you can see the drawing here, there's a lot of blah in here. There's 10 guys in here, and you're trying to run the ball in here, and it's not going to happen the way you want it to when you get down there like this. And there's a ton of bodies in there, and Indiana gets stuffed because they get guys beat across their face and stuff. And, you know, you're banging your head against the wall for nothing. Then they get wise, come back and run the counter. And this is the one where I said you got to be able to block down, pull, and kick out. And that's what they end up doing here. A lot of bodies, block down, pull, boom, boom, touchdown. And Mr. Black needs to be a little bit more patient on this. If he could be a little bit more patient here, it'll open that much, much faster for him. But he got a little bit too quick on this, as you can see here. There's kind of the hole up in there, but he kind of gets a little bit wide, and he does finally get in. And then I'm going to show you the touchdown return. This is how it looks. The guy that's highlighted here, number 38, he's the one that gets the 2 blocks of these 2 guys that springs Brady. And we'll finish on this one because this is the way you finish. Right here is seeing a big punt return for a touch. But watch 38. This is him here running down the field. He's getting beat. He gets himself in a great position because he knows the return's this way. And he's going to take these 2 guys out. Right there. Great play. And then the convoys ahead of them. Great job there. Great job by Beebe getting the block and getting in the end zone. We'll see it from the end zone here because that's even better. And the crowd goes wild, so to speak. Here's the block coming up. Boom. That block there sends it. That's a hell of a job by that young man. And then here's Beebe, Hardy, Jones. There's Bronson Bond, who got his knee blown out. But all in all, that was the play of the game. And Indiana, a big win. And you can kind of see there from just those examples, some good, some bad, and some excellent from Saturday's game on here. And really appreciate you guys hanging in there with me tonight. And I did see my daughter in here. I thought I was seeing an anomaly. My baby girl, Ash, good to see you, sweetie. And I'm sure she's like her dad. She wants to digest it all. She's a football gal through and through. So appreciate you all being with me here this evening. Indiana 1-0. And we'll head out and get it ready for Thursday with the breakdown of Kennesaw State. I'll have all that breakdown and the Dexter Williams, the quarterback that is the former IU quarterback. We'll talk about him on Thursday. Catch me on Jim Coyle this week. I'll be there to break down this game for the audience as well as on normal time on Thursday to talk Kennesaw State. But for now, everybody have a safe and enjoyable Labor Day weekend. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you this Thursday night, 7:30, all here on the Hoosier Football Tailgate on thehoosier.com. Good night, everybody.